Ciao ragazzi, this is Talk Calcio TV on YouTube. Buonasera tutti, welcome to Talk Calcio TV. As you know, tomorrow night it is the big Champions League second round clash between Tottenham Hotspur Spurs and Juventus the Bianconeri at Wembley Stadium. It is of course 2-2 from the first leg. Gonzalo Higuain of course scored a brace but then missed a penalty, in which Harry Kane and Eriksen then pulled the tie back for Spurs. They have 2 away goals. You get a feeling it is advantage to the English side. What we're going to discuss though in this episode, of course, now given the Juventus' obsession with the Champions League, of course a competition they've been in the final 9 times of but lost 7, you do wonder, should they fail this year again, could that mark the end for Massimo Allegri, the Juventus manager, at the end of the season? That's what we're going to discuss here. Massimiliano Allegri, or Max Allegri as he's known, was appointed Juventus manager in July 2014, of course a day after Antonio Conte had resigned to take the Italian international job. Now, it's fair to say his appointment has never been universally accepted with the Bianconeri faithful. Of course, Allegri was Milan coach, he'd won the Scudetto there in 2011. It wasn't just that though, you have to remember Antonio Conte, as a player and coach, was absolutely adored and loved by the Juventus faithful. He won 3 Scudetto as a manager, he won several as a player. So replacing him was never going to be easy. And when you get someone that has the Milan link, it was never going to be really accepted universally. However, that didn't efface Massimo Allegri. In his first season, of course, he won the Serie A Scudetto and the Coppa Italia. Against all the odds, they reached the Champions League final. They eliminated Real Madrid in the semi-final on aggregate, of course inspired by Alvaro Morata and Carlos Tevez. They reached the final where they would face Barcelona for a showdown in Berlin. That was the stadium where Italy won their 4th World Cup in 2006. Many expected the Belgrana though to prevail over the Bianconeri, and it was the case. Barcelona won that game of course 3-1, inspired by the likes of Neymar, Messi, Suarez, Rakitic, Xavi and Iniesta. It's fair to say Juventus didn't have that amount of talent in their team. The following season, however, Allegri would once again retain the Scudetto and the Coppa Italia. In the Champions League, however, they would be eliminated by Bayern Munich. Last season, of course, 2016-27 season, they had sold Paul Pogba for a world record transfer fee to Manchester United. They had invested heavily in recruitment, the likes of Paulo Dybala and Gonzalo Higuain. Juventus then, of course, made it to the final yet again. En route, they had eliminated Barcelona and Monaco. They would face Real Madrid in Cardiff. Now, many, including myself, thought 2015 against Barcelona was an achievement itself. Many believe that this was Juventus' time to finally win their 3rd European Cup. They did face the holders, of course, with Cristiano Ronaldo in their side. On the day, though, Juventus saved their worst till last. Having gone 1-0 down, Mandzukic, of course, then equalised for Juventus. But in the second half, we saw a complete capitulation from the Bianconeri. Real Madrid ran out 4-1 winners in what was an evenly balanced tie. In the end, proved very one-sided in the second half. It was dubbed utter humiliation. Allegri then, of course, in the Monday, we were in Rome then, it was absolutely vilified and criticised in the Italian press, saying that he lost them the final and not the players. Now, this is our point of our episode tonight. We say, it seems no matter what Allegri does at Juventus, it never seems to be good enough. Is too much pressure put on the Champions League? You know, you've got to remember, this Juventus team have won 6 Scudetto on the trot. 3 with Conte, 3 with Allegri. It seems though it's always the Champions League that Allegri gets judged on. Given his domestic success, many people, not just Juventus fans, even some of the media, have always said, well, he had Conte's team, but the team was already good. You know, what does Allegri have to do to be accepted? Now, in the Champions League tie, of course, they are playing Spurs tomorrow night. You know, in that first leg, having been 2-0 up and then just surrendered the lead, Allegri was absolutely vilified. He was criticised then again by his own fans, saying in the interview, "We drew 2-2 with Spurs and many people are acting like we've lost 8-0. Allegri, of course, also said after the Spurs game, "Juve played to win, but they are not the favourites. You can't reach the Champions League final every year. Our primary objective is the Scudetto." Now, given the investment in the summer at the Bianconeri, you would differ to agree on that one. When you look at the signings they made, of course, Matteo De Sciglio, Federico Bernardeschi, Blaise Matuidi, Douglas Costa, surely that was a statement of intent to go out and finally go one better than last year after losing the final to Real Madrid 4-1. Allegri, like I say, no matter what he does, he's got, bear in mind, he has a win ratio of 71%. 2 finals, something Conte had never achieved during his time. It still doesn't seem to be good enough for some sections of Juventus fan, possibly the board. Now, if there's one thing I always ask myself is, they've been in 9 finals, Juventus, but they've only ever won 2. They of course made their first final in 1973 in Belgrade, where they would lose to Ajax 1-0. Dubbed one of the best footballing sides ever, of course they won the European Cup 3 times on the trot. 1983, just 10 years later, in their second final, it would be 1-0 defeat again for the Bianconeri. They lost to Hamburg 1-0 in Athens, a wonder strike from Felix Magath. But in 1985, they would finally get their hands on the trophy with the big ears, the one that has been the obsession of the Agnelli family ever since they've owned Juventus. They beat Liverpool, the English champions, probably the best team in Europe at the time, the defending champions, 1-0 at Heysel Stadium in Brussels. But it's a day that is always remembered for tragedy when 39 Juventus fans innocently lost their lives. 1996, just 11 years later, after that first success, Juventus would win their second Champions League, as it was now known. They beat Ajax, of course, on penalties after a 1-1 draw in the Stadio Olimpico in Rome, inspired by the likes of Gianluca Vialli and Fabrizio Ravanelli. 1997 and 1998, they would make the final in succession yet again, 3 years on the trot. But they would lose in Munich in 97 to Borussia Dortmund 3-1, and then Real Madrid and Amsterdam in 1998 1-0. They would then have to wait till 2003 for their next final appearance, of course, which they drew with AC Milan, and let's be honest, it wasn't a great final. They lost, however, on the penalties. Then, of course, under Allegri, they made the 2015 final and, of course, last year's final in Cardiff against Real Madrid, which they lost as well, 4-1. So, given the obsession how Juventus have only ever won the competition twice, for Allegri, should they lose to Spurs tomorrow night, I can't help but think, is he taking Juventus as far as he can? Now, in the Scudetto race right now, they're locked horns with Napoli. Napoli, of course, are still top. Juventus did have a good result the weekend. You now think that maybe it's going to go Juventus' way. But, it's success for the European Cup. That's what Juventus thrive for. Winning isn't an option there. It's the only thing. When you also look at the way, in Italian football, Juventus are dominating there. They have the revenue. No other teams can compete with their economic power. But does this also ask questions about how poor Italian football is? Is it the fact that Juventus are winning it because the competition just simply aren't good enough? When it comes to Europe, are Juventus being found out? That is the other thing. But, should Allegri be gone at the end of the season, you look at his win ratio, it's 71%. That is impressive. Whether Juventus keep him or not, I'm sure Allegri would walk into a job tomorrow. Last year there was talk that Arsenal were after him. There was talk even Chelsea. Personally, I wouldn't mind him for the Italian Azzurri manager, but it's likely, like we mentioned last week, it'll be between Di Biagio, Mancini and Conte. He won't be short of offers, that's for sure, for another job. And if Juventus do get rid of Allegri, who do they get next? And what can the next manager do? If he doesn't win the European Cup, is he a failure as well? That remains to be seen. However, based on tomorrow night's game, given our predictions, I have to say at the moment, I think I said it after the first leg, it's advantage Spurs. With Kane, Ali, Eriksen and Song in your team. Of course, Harry Kane was left out the weekend. Obviously, they're keeping him fresh for this one. Juventus had a bit of a makeshift team against Lazio. They did rest some key players as well. Paulo Dybala, of course, was on the score sheet. He joins us now, actually, nodding his head. So there is, there's plenty of talent. Both teams are more or less strong. Gonzalo Higuain is unlikely to return for the Bianconeri. On the paper, I would have to say, I think it would probably be a draw, but I think, you look at Juventus in the 90s, they would go away in the Champions League or the UEFA Cup and they would absolutely destroy their opponents. And never forget Roberto Baggio against Borussia Dortmund in the 1995 UEFA Cup being a fine example. It is backs to the walls for Juventus, but they have to find something, that's for sure, because if it's elimination, they'll be seen as a tragedy in the Italian press, and I think this will seal a Massimo Allegri's fate. So thanks for watching this episode of Talk Calcio TV on YouTube. Don't forget to like, comment below, and give us your thoughts ahead of tomorrow's game. Who's going through? Is it Spurs? Is it Juventus? Don't forget to subscribe. Talk Calcio TV on YouTube. who will bring you our reaction after the game has finished. Arrivederci, ciao!